Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to our monthly New Mexico Recovery Series. Our mission with the series is to create awareness about opportunities and resources for businesses and communities. Today, we'll discuss how to do business with the state of New Mexico. Some of the pre-submitted questions will be addressed throughout the presentation, but also feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation because the speakers and presenters have said it's okay to take a few questions live. So feel free to use that function, the question box. I'll also be recording this presentation and posting on our YouTube channel, of course, and then who all that have registered, they get a copy of the slides and the recording. So if they missed anything, they can go and look it up again. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to mark your calendar for May 24th at 1 p.m. The Director of Veteran Business Outreach Center Program will be the guest speaker for the next New Mexico Recovery Series. So details to come, just save the date, just letting you know about that will be the next one in May. So this is breaking news, fresh off the presses. The New Mexico Tourism Department has just launched some new programs. There's 3 different programs that they just launched. There's the Event Accelerator. It builds and improves events in preparation of sponsorship. Technical assistance provides an online discoverability audit for the event. Upon successful completion of the Accelerator, the event may receive up to $5,000 in reimbursement-based funding to execute the deliverables provided by the Accelerator. So to participate, applicants must provide proof of an event success track record, local commitment, and readiness to accelerate. Also, there's the event sponsorship. It secures sponsorships for events providing up to $50,000 in sponsorships from New Mexico Tourism Department by providing the opportunity to participate in a national sponsorship sales program. To participate, applicants must upload letters of support of the event's town, city, county chambers, and events must have media and communication plans, website and social media strategy, and marketing budget. Applicants also must provide information at the back end, so demographics, impact on the community. And lastly, the third program that just launched is this co-op event advertising program. This secures marketing and advertising for events through a 2-to-1 co-funded marketing program in which awarded entities choose from a media menu for up to $10,000. So please visit their website. I provided on the slide to get more details about eligibility and requirements. And this has just launched, so I don't have all the details, but the website does contain a lot of information. The Outdoor Rec also has a grant program. Outdoor Recreation Trails Plus grant opened on March 1st, and they're still accepting applications. It's on a rolling basis, but we always encourage you to apply early because we don't know what the funding, if it will run out or not. This grant will fund shovel-ready outdoor infrastructure projects. So for more information, you can look on the website. It's nmoutside.com to provide a full program guide for the grant program. And also, if you just want to attend a webinar, it's coming up on April 27th at 10 a.m. They're going to do a Q&A and technical assistance as well. And that's a hyperlink, so if you click on there, you can register as well. So moving on. Oh, my colleague Felicia DePaula, Program Development Specialist, has another interview scheduled for the Rural Efficient Business Program. It's going to be High Country Meets. We'll be interviewed on the 26th at noon. So just click on the register button and you can register for that interview. And I'm sure most of our audience knows about our weekly resource wrap-up. Well, now every Monday, the Economic Development Department streams a quick overview of our weekly wrap-up via Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter in under 15 minutes. The Economic Development Departments, we feature special guests to dig a little deeper into specific programs. We've had a lot of different special guests so far. We've had Main Street West, Minority Business Development Agency, Working Now Loan Fund through the North Central COG, New Mexico Taxation Revenue Department. So if you prefer to listen instead of reading our weekly email, please plan to stay tuned into our live stream. And if you haven't registered for our weekly wrap-up, please do so. It has a lot of information about what's going on within our department, any resources that are available, even the ones, the grant opportunities that I mentioned, they will be in our wrap-up as well. So with that, you probably want to talk to our presenters. So I will introduce you to Mark Hayden. Mr. Hayden was appointed Director of the State Purchasing Division in January of 2019. Mark is an attorney with 33 years of experience in both government and private practice. He was previously the Legal Service Bureau Chief at New Mexico Purchasing, former Associate General Counsel at New Mexico Human Services Department, worked for 20 years as counsel for a Fortune 500 insurance, following several years in private litigation firm in Chicago. Mark graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison Law School after receiving his political science degree from Northern Illinois University. Mark also studied engineering at General Motors Institute while working as the electromotive division of GM to manufacture locomotives. I like that part. Mark currently is a member of the New Mexico Council for Purchasing from Persons with Disabilities, the Coalition for Sustainable Communities, the Citizens Advisory for Oversight of Legacy Hazard Waste Cleanup in Los Alamos. He attended the World Climate Change Conference last fall in Glasgow. He's an avid sailor of the Great Lakes for 25 years. Mark found water rather scarce in the high desert, so now he hikes and bikes and skis and rafts and travels extensively throughout the West. He's explored all corners of New Mexico, all state parks from Arizona to Canada, and completed his first Grand Canyon rim to rim hike in the spring of 2018. Mark participates in his neighborhood book club and is an active member of several local nature groups. So Mark, where is your favorite place to hike? When I read this, I was like, I need to find out.
I do Atalaya at the regular because it's so close to Santa Fe here, but La Luz is one of my training grounds for the Grand Canyon.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, I'll transition over to you, Mark.
Thank you for that introduction. Appreciate it. So state purchasing, what do we do? How do we do it? And let's get down to some nitty gritty, and then Francine will take it over near the end. So we buy nothing. We procure everything. And that distinction is important in your world. Why? Because when you try to market it, we don't know what the agencies will need. What we do is react to the agencies come to us and say, hey, can you procure this for us? Whether it's video services or whether it's printing services or janitorial supplies, electric charging stations, electric cars, we will react to an agency request. We don't answer directly to vendors who want to say, oh, gee, I want to be on your price agreement, or can you add me? The answer is no. But what you do is you register with the state, and then we will notify you of any requests that fit your NIGP code, and then you'll take it from there with either a bid or a request for proposal. You'll get direct notice once you do the registration process, and Francine's going to go through a lot of that later on. Okay, next slide. So the Buy New Mexico initiative is the governor's attempt to try to jumpstart the New Mexico economy, and to try to reach out to vendors. And that's one of the things we're doing today. State purchasing, as part of General Services Department, is trying to reach out to businesses to say, hey, look, there's $6 billion that we spend at the state level. There's a piece of that for you if you participate. And we try to have incentives to drive business to the locally owned businesses. And we'll get into this a little bit later, the Native American businesses, local businesses, veteran businesses. And if you qualify and go through the certification process when you submit your bid, you will get a preference. The important thing, I think, when you walk away is that, okay, I have to register. Who do I have to register again with? And there's really three important pieces to that. It's not just us. It's also with Tax and Rev to get the state tax ID number, and with the Secretary of State to register your business. And then the third thing is to register with us so that we know you exist, you get direct notice, and that you can take advantage of the solicitations when they're rolled out. Next slide, please. All right, like I mentioned, we spend as a state about $6 billion each year on goods and services. And we want to keep more money in the state to benefit our businesses. And hundreds of price agreements are rolled out each year for various services and various goods. And we do that through the competitive process and the procurement code. The idea is that rather than you call some friend in the government office and they give you a contract, we make this fair for everyone. We publish it. We give an opportunity to everybody to participate. We're transparent in the process. All our records are available for public review. Typically, when we have awards, some people are not happy about how that went, and they'll say, well, why did I not get a contract? We have documentation that shows what each of the bids were and how we went through the selection process. If it's an RFP, we'll have a very detailed evaluation committee report that goes through each of the criteria and shows how either you did well, or if you missed the mark, why it didn't meet the competition of others, so that you know where you land, so that next time you submit something, you can learn from what happened and then build on that experience. Also, just we have an ethics rule. So to call anyone in the office and to say, hey, I want to be on your preferred vendor list, or I want a contract with you. Ethically, we cannot do that because of the reasons I just said, and the procurement code's pretty strict about that, and there are penalties if you don't comply with the procurement code. So it's kind of an awkward situation, and I've been in that situation a number of times, and I'll just say, I'd rather us do this publicly through the procurement code and avoid both of us going to jail or making the headlines for the wrong reasons. So we do have this process in place for a reason. We want it to be fair, and that's why it exists. With regard to a proposal or bid, we always post those awards on our website, and you can see all of those. And Francine, maybe I'll point to a couple of them, but if there's questions on it, we can go deeper. But they're all posted on our website, and if there's something that's missing that an agency could use or should use, the correct way to start that process is to reach out to the vendor should reach out to the agencies, so that then the agency can reach out to us so that we can initiate a procurement to fill that gap. I think I have a link down there. It's not an active link, so it's not. I'll show you what's on our website, I think, in the upcoming slides. So advance to the next slide, please. Oh yeah, I want to touch on this. So last legislative process, every year state purchasing seems to have a legislative initiative. 2 years ago, it was a bill to consolidate with the Contracts Review Bureau under our roof. It used to be off the Department of Finance and Administration, and it just seemed to be not a good fit. So they migrated over to us. That was one. Last year, I tried to clean up the procurement code, and it was a pretty hefty bill, but it seemed like there was something in it that everybody could find not to like, so it didn't pass. But this one did, the Senate Bill 39, and this was kind of important because we've had a veterans preference for, I want to say, about a decade. And that bill back then had a provision to sunset the law, and it was going to eliminate the veterans preference as of July 1st of this year. So what Senate Bill 39 did is a couple things. First, New Mexico resident businesses received the 5% bidding advantage when seeking a state and local contract. And the governor recognized that COVID-19 hit pretty hard a lot of the smaller businesses. And you can see that when you go to your shopping malls and see how many blank windows there are from businesses who didn't succeed. So we wanted to try to increase the leverage that we have for our own resident businesses by increasing the benefit. Instead of being 5%, it's now 8% for New Mexico resident businesses. And the veterans preference was renewed at 10%. Now, something we did new is we added Native American businesses. They couldn't qualify before this bill passed because they didn't pay taxes directly to the state. And so we had a provision that said you're going to have to be a resident of New Mexico, but you don't have to pay the taxes piece because they're on sovereign nation soil. So they've been historically carved out. So we added them because they're in New Mexico too. And I think I go into this a little more on the next slide. I can't remember. I wrote this a while back. Yeah, okay, so here's how it works. So yeah, it's increased from 5 to 8% for New Mexico businesses. So any business in New Mexico should apply for this certification through Tax and Rev to get that 8% advantage. Why not, right? And we also allow the Native Americans as of July 1st to participate through a process of certification. Tax and Rev is working right now on the details of what that looks like, but there's I think an income cap of 5 million, 6 million, 6 million, yeah, for certified resident veteran businesses and for Native American businesses. So with that in mind, you're going to want to make that process, you're going to want to submit your application so that they're in effect by July 1st, because that's when we'll actually put it into practice. Something we did a couple years ago, we didn't know how many contracts were actually with New Mexico businesses. So how do we get that data? We passed a law that said that the agencies have to report that on an annual basis. And I got to say, we were pretty excited when we saw the results. It's about over 70% of our price agreement contracts included New Mexico businesses. So it's highly oriented towards supporting New Mexico businesses. And we think that with this new bill that just passed and with outreach programs like this, the Buy New Mexico initiative, that we're going to get a higher number than that, because that's what we're focused on. Next slide, please. So when you go to our website, it's real easy to Google, and Francine will kind of walk you through it. All you got to do is Google New Mexico state purchasing. There's a drop down for our statewide price agreements on one of the tabs, and this is kind of what it looks like. So like, let's say you were into radio equipment and parts. You would be able to do a search by description and come up with like what you see here for communication, radio equipment, and parts. And then there'll also be the list of vendors. Sometimes we do multiple vendors, sometimes we do only one. We tend to do multiple vendor awards because sometimes vendors can't provide the service in a timely fashion, so we go to the next one, or they can't provide the service in the region in New Mexico. New Mexico is a big state. We got a lot of empty space in between, and sometimes it's not economical for somebody in Farmington to do business in the southeast corner of the state near Carlsbad. So we want to have regional coverage, and that's why we tend to pick vendors that cover those remote regions for continuation of services. Next slide, please. So this gives you a little more drill down with how it would look with a multiple award. That contract, that first one that you saw, now has multiple vendors, and you can see under the contract reference number in the first column, they have either AA, AB, AC, and each one of those, that suffix correlates to a vendor, a different vendor. And that gives you a little information about who they are. And then this is kind of something we've been trying to focus on, and I might do an Amazon-like experience at some point when we get our new system up and running. But you can see on the far right, there's a colored flag. And that means that that vendor has a New Mexico resident business certification. And you'll see some grayed out flags too. Like for instance, the one next to it is an American flag, and that would tell you whether or not the vendor has a veteran status certification with us. None of those are color, so none of those have that. And what we try to tell the agencies is this: if you have, all things equal, a choice between New Mexico resident business or a veteran business, choose them over somebody that doesn't have that certification. So that's why those preferences are pretty important. You don't have to get them, but they're a benefit when you do, and this is why. We're thinking down the road too. We don't have it yet. There's talk about it, but it's a statutory change, and that's to do like the women minority owned or historically underutilized businesses. We're looking into that. We're not there yet. The laws, they've been trying every year that I've been here to pass something like that, but it has not passed here in New Mexico yet. And another initiative that the governor is pretty keen on is environmentally friendly or sustainable. And we're thinking of adding another column where it shows like a green leaf or something where this contract offers sustainable products, so that agencies can quickly look and say, all right, well, this is one we have to look for, because that's an initiative we're pretty important to us. All right, next slide, please. All right, the statewide price agreements that I've just shown you, why are they important, and what advantage does it have for you to be on it? All my statewide price agreements on the state purchasing website are available not only to state agencies, but also to local public bodies throughout the state, school districts, counties, cities. And the beauty of that is they don't have to do a procurement. I've done it for them through our office, and they can just look it up. And if there's a good or service that's on there, they don't need to do a procurement. They go right to cutting a PO. So it's really easy for them to use. And so if you can take advantage of getting an award on a price agreement through the procurement process, you're well situated to get the business from the state. That's why it's really important that you register, because if there is an opportunity to do a solicitation, that's your ticket to at least competing for an award with the state. Now, if you don't register with us, we also publish in 3 newspapers throughout the state, but then you're going to have to paw through the legal section in the back of the paper to see if there's something relevant to you. It's so much easier if you register with us to get that direct notice once you're registered on our system. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of that competitive edge with the 8% for New Mexico resident businesses and the 10% if you're a veteran. Again, that new percentage will be in effect as of July 1st. That was signed into law by the governor about a month and a half ago, and it will be law on July 1st. So you'll need to register with our system and then submit a request for that certification through Tax and Rev. We do offer a link to the form that you'll need to fill out on our website. So you can go to the Tax and Rev website, or you can go to ours. And if you have trouble finding it, Francine will be happy to guide you to where that might be. Next slide, please. So that Francine will show you this live on our website when we get to that point, but I wanted to show you, all right, what does this look like when you get to our website? How do I do it? How do I register? So we have a vendor registration page with all the information, with all the links to the process. We even have videos that show how to do it. And we'll get into a little bit that later, but I just wanted to show you that it's under the resources information section on our website. You look under vendors, and the NIGP commodity codes are really how we match a vendor's goods and services with our needs. When an agency says, hey, we need this particular janitorial supplies, whatever it is, paper products, there's a corresponding NIGP code. And if your company offers that, you want to make sure that when you register, you put that down, so that when we have an agency says we need that, you are going to have a notice of that solicitation when it comes out and an opportunity to participate. There's a video we have, you can see right on, so top one is NIGP codes, next one is how to use NIGP code, and it's a video that goes through that whole process. The supplier online registration link is how you'd actually do it, and we'll do that live for you. Supplier online registration guide, that's helpful to kind of give you some more information on how to go about doing the registration. And we also have a video on how to do the New Mexico State supplier registration process. And we have a vendor preference application form. That's the one that goes to tax and rev. So you'll be able to access it through our website here. And then the W-9 process is important because you don't get paid until we get your W-9. So we got to get you into the system. And then on the bottom, anybody that gets a contract through the state and there's some spend underneath that contract, there's an administrative fee of 1% that goes to actually operate our division. We don't get paid 100% from our general fund. We rely on that fund to pay our employees here and to keep the lights on. Next slide, please. All right, I actually put a supplier registration, and I'm not going to take away any thunder from Francine, so I'm not going to walk you through this, but I just want you to see what it looks like when you hit on that tab for vendor registration. All right, next slide. And then there's a page here, and don't print this. It's like 1,000 pages long. But you can find with quick searching, like there's a search bar up there with a little magnifying glass. You can find whatever it is your company either provides in terms of goods or services within the NGP codes. And why is this important to us? Well, it's not only the notice provision for you for solicitation opportunities, but also we want to get more sophisticated and be more intelligent in the way we procure things and look at the spend linked to each of our contracts. And the way we're going to do that, because an agency might say, oh, pens, and then another one will say, oh, we want to have roller pens, or we want to have red pens. And so what's missing from our price agreements, we won't know that until we do an analysis. And right now our system, our current ePro system, doesn't talk to the financial side. So we never have a line of sight to what's being spent. And I think one of the challenges I had recently was, why do we have to buy 100 different types of laptops? Why can't we cull that down to maybe 3, 4, 5 different ones in terms of memory, size, whether it has a camera in that, and how they're using those machines and how they link together with their networks. We think we can probably leverage a better intelligent purchase if we're able to see who's using what. So that's all back-end stuff that I just wanted to show you why NGP codes are important, because they're not only notice to you, but they're information for us in the back end. Next slide, please. So there's training that's associated with a lot of what we do, and one of the things that we do to raise the professional level within state purchasing is a CPO training. And what that is every agency has a chief procurement officer, and they need to go through a several-day training class and then pass an exam, and then they have to recertify every 2 years. Everybody on our staff has that CPO designation. And so when an agency calls us for questions or guidance, we have people who have gone through that process and know the procurement code inside and out, because we all want to stay out of the press and out of jail. Next slide. All right, so when you have a question, you'll want to contact state purchasing. And I'll tell you a little bit about Francine Wagner, who's been patiently waiting here to speak. This is a position that we created because we got a lot of criticism years ago where our buyers are in the middle of thinking through an RFP or an ITB, and they're working on trying to evaluate, and then they get a phone call or they get an email, and then they get distracted and they forget to respond. And so there was this customer service perception that we weren't really doing our job. So we said, well, let's fix this. We'll give that response duty to a person that we'll call the customer service liaison. And then we interviewed a bunch of people, and Francine was the selection that we made, and she's done a great job. If you call her, if you ask her a question, she will dog that until you get the answer. So I turn the floor over to Francine to walk us through the registration process and whatever you want to show us on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm going to, can you see my screen?
Yes.
You can see it? Okay. So I'm going to, if you would like to jot down our web email address, it's www.generalservices.state.nm.us. Our website is user friendly, so it'll take you directly to our website. Usually it says facilities management, printing and graphics, purchasing. It's all our different divisions. What you'll want to do is you'll want to click on purchasing, and here it's very user friendly. There's so much information that you can locate regarding any sort of procurement, whether it's any of the active procurements that Mark mentioned. There's a list of every one of them that's out there for a solicitation, and you can view it by executive agency as well as local public body. It gives a description of the scope of work that they're in search of. So there's a lot of information that is available for any vendor that has any questions regarding any of our active procurements, our current statewide price agreements. They also are available, and you can actually, if you have the actual contract number, enter it in this box here, or by description, or the actual vendor. If you want to look up a particular vendor that may mirror the type of good or service you all are providing, you can actually locate it by vendor. And once you enter in a vendor, you can it'll bring it up specifically, and you just put a little check mark, and then you would click the blue search button, and it'll bring up the specific contracts that are within that type of commodity. Or if you are savvy with all of our commodities that we provide, which are over 10,000, you could actually look it up by the commodity. So like I say, there's a lot of helpful information. I am going to focus on the vendor supplier registration. We do highly encourage any vendor that is not currently registered in our system to register their company. Based on the commodity is how you'll receive the notification, and at that time you would be able to submit your bid or proposal to the state of New Mexico to be considered on a statewide price agreement. Here it is under for suppliers. If you have not registered, it would be vendor supplier login. I'm sorry, vendor supplier registration. Prior to going to the vendor supplier registration, I do highly suggest that you click on the NGP commodity codes. It's easier to have it open and available, and maybe it's a little bit of homework on your end, but it's so worth it because in the future you will receive any notification. Again, it's based on commodity. So it's a list of over 10,000. I usually suggest to go into column D and do a control F and use keywords that are reflective of your business. It does narrow down the search and will help you save some time. So I usually do suggest to keep that open so that you can refer to it when creating your profile. So you will actually click, after you open the NGP commodity codes, you'll open up, and Mark mentioned, this is where you will begin the registration process. It takes about 25 minutes, but we also provide a list of items that you are required when creating your profile: company name, tax ID number, address, phone. The most important piece to this is that email information. The email is going to be where the notification will be sent. So it's very important that you find someone within your company that does check their emails frequently, because the event will be sent there. Sometimes we'll have vendors contact us saying that they never received the event, but our system's so time sensitive that it will actually provide a date stamp when the event was sent to that specific email address. So you always want to make sure you have a current email address and the individual is actually checking emails daily. the list of commodities that will be based off of the spreadsheet we provide, and any other information. Once you have all this, it's much easier just to go in and create the profile. We also provide a 1-800 number so that if you forget your password, which does happen, especially to me once in a blue moon, you'll be able to contact this number and they'll be able to do your password for you, reset your password. And also, if you feel that you have registered in our system but you're uncertain, you're also welcome to call this telephone number and they can actually verify if you are currently registered, and if you are, can help you reset your password as well. And then you'll just continue on with the registration, and it'll ask you to create a login password and then utilize your email address that's going to be attached to it. Let's see, I'm sorry.
Francine and Mark, a question did come in. You guys are just so that we haven't had many questions. So it said, should hotels register?
Mark,
yeah, let me explain again. We're responding mostly to the need that's within the agency. So if there's an agency, let's say, that puts on a lot of events and they need hotel facilities, we would definitely add that to our statewide price agreements. But until I'm assuming, I can't recall whether we actually do have that or not. But if we don't, and that's something that's a need, I would say approach the agency that would potentially need that service, and they would then ask us to do a procurement for it, and we'd be happy to do it for them.
Another question just popped up. Are you allowed to select, are you only allowed to select only one code, or can you use multiple codes?
Definitely multiple. Go ahead, Francine.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, definitely multiple, especially with vehicle maintenance and construction, office supplies. You definitely want to pull as many commodities that are applicable to your business. So you won't definitely narrow down your search to one if your company has multiple commodities that are reflective of their business.
Great. All right, go ahead. I think we answered the two that came in.
Okay. Also, if you go over to resources in the dark blue under most popular links, resources and information, there's the information that Mark pointed out earlier for vendors specifically. It'll give you another, the access to the NGP commodity codes, how to utilize them. And there's actually, which Mark did want to point out, there's a couple of videos that are so user-friendly. You're welcome to give me a call, like Mark mentioned, and you're also welcome to look at the couple of videos that we have available as far as how to register as a New Mexico State supplier, and they're very informative, very detailed. Those will help you through the process, as mentioned. The other question I think we had was vendor preference application. It's actually a link that will take you, it'll give you information because this is more of a tax and rev function. We do provide 3 different telephone numbers, their web address, and they will be able to help with the certification for the resident business, veteran business, and any other certifications that they offer. So again, there's some helpful information on the application to get certified. That's also available on our website as well. I think that was all the information that I wanted to cover. And like I said, if you want to contact myself, our phone numbers are actually listed on our website under divisions. You would just click on state purchasing, and right over to the left-hand side next to Mark's picture, you can contact us, click on contact us, and all our telephone numbers are listed here for you, and there's my direct lines.
So a couple questions came up about sole source and emergency procurement. Do you want to touch on that?
Mark, would you like to?
I'd love to.
Okay.
So there are some exceptions to the procurement code process. And when I say that, I'm referring to the request for proposals and the invitation to bids. Those are competitive. Now, emergencies and sole sources are not. However, there's some protections that are built into how that can be done. So if an agency declares they have emergency, they have to write a justification. They have to submit it to the Department of Finance and Administration for approval. And they're usually only for a limited amount of time and potentially an limited amount of money until a procurement can be put in place. COVID was an example of where that kind of immediacy in reacting, vaccines, testing kits, PPE, was absolutely critical to get done quickly. And as it turns out, that even if a procurement was in place, and we did have contracts in place for masks and for gowns and for gloves, there was just no supply. The agencies, particularly a Department of Health, was just scrambling, trying to get vendors who could actually deliver those goods and services. So the emergency provision within the procurement code is a way to respond to a critical time-sensitive need to purchase something without going through that competitive process. But it doesn't last forever, and there is a second set of eyes on it, because not only do they have to get DFA approval, they also have to post it on the New Mexico Sunshine Portal for the world to see. So if they're not doing something right, it's going to be readily available for public view. The sole source is similar, but not exactly the same, because it's not an emergency. It's just that what that says is there's no other entity that can provide that service, that particular service or that particular product. And sometimes the most frequent use of that I see is when a program was built for a particular agency to do, let's say, like background checks. There's a go-to that we have because they've been here for a long time. We've integrated a lot of their our specific needs when they do the fingerprinting, when they do the background checks. And that system that's been created is not available off the shelf anywhere else. And therefore, an agency would typically say, this is the only person, only business that can provide that type of service to us. And then that sole source is advertised, it's published, that if another vendor says, hey, wait, I can do that, they can protest the sole source, and then the agency has to take a look to see if that's true. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but there's a process in place where it's public information, and an agency just can't say, well, we think it's sole source. It has to be tested in the market. And if there's no protest, then the sole source is accepted as the only source, and then they can use it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. Francine, I just wanted to see if you wanted to talk about the system, how the registration process may change.
Oh yes, thank you. I knew there was something else. Thank you. So our system will be migrating over into the system called Share that the executive agencies utilize for all of our finances. It's going to, I think, happen in September or October. So if you do register your company this week, next week, just please note that when we implement the migration, you will have to go in and re-register your company here in the next couple of months as well.
And we'll send a notice out for that.
Yes.
The follow-up on the sole source, I didn't see it in time, is if there's only one business that provides a specific service, how does this advertise to the public?
So again, the Sunshine Portal is where that would show up. And we have a link on our website where agencies say, oh, we have a sole source we want to publish. and they will access that link. They'll put the sole source on the Sunshine portal, and then businesses could take a look at what the scope of whatever that good or service is, and then decide whether or not they can provide it. And if they can, there's a mechanism then where they can protest it, and then the agency needs to look at it, consider it, and either accept the fact that it's not sole source and then do a procurement, or reject that protest and say, well, you're close, but you don't provide X, Y, and Z, and therefore it's still a sole source.
Great. I don't see any other questions. So I think what I'll do, just to remind everybody that's listening, and this is such great information, I'll make sure that everybody registered has a copy of the slides and a copy of the recording as well. So I want to thank Mark and Francine for doing such a wonderful job. I learned a lot, and I hope everybody that's attending as well learned as much as I did. So with that, and I'll also make sure that within the email that I send, I'll have Francine and Mark's contact information. So if you have any questions that come up after the fact, you can contact them directly.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, everybody else have a great rest of your afternoon and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.